professors. Our next speaker comes from Georgetown University. The adjunct professor, Bobby Goldwater, one of the most respected and innovative executives in the sports industry, specialized in entertainment and venue management, is with us and he will talk about a very interesting topic. Today, the talk will start with the importance of education and continuous learning in the professional sports business environment. Mr. Goldwater, I'm happy and honored to have you here with us today. The floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to this conversation and to actually answering questions that the attendees of the conference have. You've actually had a couple people who I have gotten to know. Karen Irish, who is a earlier speaker, she and I taught at Georgetown together, and she is a wonderful person. I'm sure you were all very impressed with all of her knowledge. And Coach Patino, I know he coached there, but for a couple of years he coached when I was at Madison Square Garden. I guess I'll talk about my background first, just to give everybody a little bit of an idea about me. But I remember Coach Patino very well. He coached for a couple of years with the New York Knicks. So it's okay if I start with my background. Yes?
Of course, and it's
Okay.
very interesting.
Okay. I'll try to make this as short as I can. I've just been in the industry for a long time. I grew up north of New York City, went to school at Miami University in Ohio, the state of Ohio. My first job out of college was back home in New York in the public relations department at Madison Square Garden. They were looking for a writer. I was a writer, and it was just a great fit. Even though I thought I was going to be a sports journalist, I wound up going into public relations. A few years later, at the age of 27, I was promoted to become the public relations director for all of Madison Square Garden. The only events we didn't cover in our department were the New York Knicks basketball, the New York Rangers in hockey, and professional boxing. We did everything else. So we did track meets and tennis tournaments, dog shows, horse shows, concerts, the circus, family shows. We did everything. And it was just a great way to learn the industry. And I'll get back to that in a minute. I started the marketing department at Madison Square Garden. I moved into corporate communications for a time. I was the vice president of the New York Knicks and the New York Rangers at the same time, actually. Took on the entertainment events as well, again. And then I was moved over to our facilities development and management group, which was running the venue. It was developing new venue opportunities, venue management opportunities, but we were also overseeing a renovation of Madison Square Garden. This was a $250 million renovation project. I had some elements of it, some components that I was responsible for. And so we started elements such as event presentation. That was a term that, frankly, I coined. That I made that up. And now everybody uses it today. But it was just something that I had in another life. I was a musical theater performer and also a stage manager. So it occurred to me, as someone who performed, stage managed, attended a lot of Broadway plays in New York City, that we should be running our events just as Broadway runs its events. You need a stage manager. You need somebody to call cues for lighting, to tell the public address announcer what to do. So at least for the NBA and NHL, I believe this is true, that the first person to put on a pair of headsets and to have a script and to give the next cue for music or for lights or for public address announcements was me. Everybody does that now here in the United States, but I believe it's true that I was the first person to do it in the NBA and the NHL. So my last 10 years at the Garden, I did not miss a Knicks and Rangers game for any reason. I think it's fair to say that it wasn't my title, but my last job at the Garden, I was functioning as the assistant general manager. So I was there for events and running our three venues, the arena that everybody is familiar with. We had a theater and we had an expo hall. So we had 450 events a year. So got to be there a lot. If anybody was looking for me, they knew where to find me. I was always at the Garden. And I thought I was going to stay there forever because who would leave? But I did. I was convinced to move to Los Angeles to become the first general manager of Staples Center, the new arena in Los Angeles. So when I arrived, we had essentially 15 months to get a lot done. The arena was a construction project. There was a hole in the ground with 2 concrete columns coming out of the ground. We had just a few people on the staff who were holdovers from the LA Forum Arena and from the Los Angeles Kings Hockey Club. We had no policies and procedures as an organization. We had no events booked. We had very little. And we had 15 months to get everything done, which we did. We opened in October of 1999 with 4 nights of Bruce Springsteen. We had 2 NBA teams, the Lakers and the Clippers, calling us home, the LA Kings NHL team, an Arena Football League team, the Grammy Awards, the award show started its long run at Staples Center. That during that first season, we had the Democratic presidential nominating convention that first season, lots of other events. We had a great first season. The Lakers won the first of 3 titles in a row with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant that first season. So we had a great first season. In the middle of that, I was asked to start a new business division for our organization. And my little one-person office with the initiatives that I started is now a 20,000 person global company called AEG. They did a remarkable thing. And we also started on the project that opened up LA Live, an entertainment district directly across the street from Staples Center, which was transformative for downtown Los Angeles. I thought I was going to stay in Los Angeles longer than the about 3 years that I was there, but I was recruited to move to Washington, D.C. to become the president of the D.C. Sports and Entertainment Commission. And while I had other responsibilities, the reason I moved there was to lead the effort to bring Major League Baseball back to our nation's capital. Baseball had left in 1971, had not been back. It is now 2000, and I couldn't understand why baseball wasn't there. Long story short, less than 4 years later, we convinced the commissioner and a lot of other people in Major League Baseball to relocate the Montreal Expos to become the Washington Nationals, who have been very successful. In 2019, the Nationals won the World Series, so that was very rewarding. The ballpark that the Nationals play in is at the location that I recommended. It has changed that whole area of downtown Washington, so that's been very gratifying as well. I started a consulting company shortly after that. I've had some great projects, both nationally and internationally, but it's also given me flexibility of time, including the opportunity to accept an invitation to come teach at Georgetown University, which I've been doing since our sports industry management master's program started in 2008. So I'm the longest serving instructor in our program. I ran it for 18 months when we were in between leaders. I started our online curriculum. I taught in Doha, Qatar, helping launch a sports education program there with the Joe Shore Institute. It has just been a real privilege to do that. It's my favorite thing to do. And I'm also involved with a number of other activities, including I'm on the board of directors of the International Association of Venue Managers. I've been a member of that organization for a long time. I just joined the board a few months ago for a 2-year term, and I'm also the chair of its academic committee. So I'm sorry if that took a little longer, but that's my background. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to groups like this and to contribute in any way I can. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
Professor Goldwater, thank you very much for your introduction, which is a very impressive CV and a truly informative speech because you combine many facts and other inside information of what was happening at the time, the winnings of the titles, etc., etc. Before I open the discussion to our audience, and since I am representative of the academic aspect as a lecturer at the American College of Greece. I would like to ask you which of the roles that you have described that are quite diverse, from being the general manager at Stable Center, and then a freelancer with a number of projects, and then in academia along with other obligations. Which is the role that you could say that you enjoy most?
Ooh, that's not easy to answer, I guess. Well, as I mentioned a few moments ago, it is a privilege to teach. It is a privilege to have the opportunity to interact with students and share what I have learned over a career, to share what I know, what I love, what I have done. There's very little in the industry, frankly, I haven't done. I have not signed players to contracts. I've never wanted to do that. That is a thankless task, in my opinion. But everything else, from business development and strategic planning, marketing and public relations, sales and sponsorship, I've done just about everything. I was the backup public address announcer for the Knicks and for college basketball at the Garden. I had to play the keyboard instrument one night when the regular guy didn't show up for a Knicks game, which was a little harrowing. I will not repeat that experience. But I really have done just about everything you can do. So the fact that I loved working at Madison Square Garden. I mean, to me, Madison Square Garden is home. The pace, the energy, the number of events, everything about the Garden was during my 24 years there was very special. But I have to say that the 13 years that I have spent teaching is something that I truly enjoy. One thing that I have discovered, and I learned, and this goes back to the point I was making earlier when I was talking about my background at the Garden. And maybe other people have felt this way too, but I think this is worth sharing. I have learned more since I got my college degree. I have learned and tried to be open to learning every moment since I started my career. There's been so much to absorb. There has been so much to see. There have been so many relationships to build. It's all there for you, no matter what part of the sports industry somebody gets in. You have the opportunity to learn and to gain knowledge, to gain experience, to build relationships. And it's really been a privilege for me to be able to do that. I tell my students all the time, I have a story for every occasion and usually more than one. So depending on a question that they ask or a point on in a particular class that I know I need to make, I usually have a story that I can support the lesson with. So you have to be open for this. So to me, and perhaps you as someone who is interested in this area would also appreciate, I suggest to my students that they put themselves in a position for yes. You've got to be present in order to take advantage of opportunities. So if there are going to be plenty of people to tell you no, they're going to be standing in line to tell you, no, you can't do this. No, we don't want you. No, no, no. But if you can put yourself in a position for yes, you've gained experience, you've shown initiative, you have enthusiasm and energy for a particular set of opportunities. If you have yourself in that position for yes, opportunities will come. No closes doors. Yes opens them. And so that's something that I have, frankly, built a whole career around, frankly. I didn't know that I was going to be able to do some of the things that I wound up doing, but I tried them. And most of the time it's worked out. And so taking some chances and just being in the right position for others to notice you, for you to take an opportunity is very important. But I've learned so much since I got my college degree. And so I've been able to adapt, pivot, take advantage of things, and it's really been important.
Uh, Professor Goldwater, given the opportunity, and since you have mentioned it twice that learning starts when you get your degree, I have a question from an acquaintance, Themistoklis Karpoudis from Active Media Group, the company
Okay.
organizing the conference. How important is continuing education in the business environment? Since you're advocating for learning starts when you get your degree.
Well, I think it depends on the person. It depends on the position. So it could be that the person who asked that question I may have had at Georgetown. I may have met him about 11 years ago.
Yes.
So, and for some people, getting a master's degree or even a PhD makes sense because they're eager to learn more. When you apply for a master's degree, there are opportunities to build relationships with faculty members. You can explore different concepts, different theories, different practices and principles. There's a lot to recommend that. But for me, for example, in a very different and far distant time, there weren't a lot of master's programs in our industry. So I just graduated, and like most of us, we just went to work. And there's something to be said for that in our industry also, because just getting experience and getting started, there's a lot to recommend that too. So I think it really depends on what part of the industry you want to get in. Ours, no matter where it is, whether it is in Greece, elsewhere in Europe, in the United States, ours is a relationship business. So it's people get jobs, people build careers, people get things done, they accomplish things. A lot of it is through relationships. So however you can get started with building relationships and gaining experience is a good thing. Some people do well with another degree, a higher education degree. Others, succeed wonderfully by just getting started in their career. So I don't think, I've told, I host a weekly webinar here in the States for the IAVM, the International Association of Venue Managers, and and I interview a venue management executive. I did that all during 2020, and one of the points of that was that there is no one path for a career in our industry. Whether you're talking about venue management, event management, anywhere in sports, there's no one path. So the important thing is to try to find your path and try to find some focus, try to figure out what you're good at, what you're not, and finding out what you're not good at it's a pretty valuable piece of information. A lot of people don't really, they're afraid of that somehow. It's good to learn that too, but to think that there is just one path to do this is, I don't think that's true. That has certainly not been my experience or certainly my observation.
Very interesting. So based on what you have framed, the ability to think of the yes and the keeping the relationships, it seems like you're identifying some soft skills that are needed for potential sports management. So we have a question inquiring, in an industry with billions of dollars in revenue, which is the most required, the most precious skill for a potential sports management to succeed in this industry?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that one word? The
The most
what skill?
required skill.
I guess I am starting to sound a little bit like the soft skills are important. And soft skills are, I will certainly concede that, but there are any number of other skills that are important also. I have found that the best leaders in our industry are all great communicators. They listen well, they speak well, they will be able to write or they have the ability to put forward their vision, their ideas. That is really important. And so communication skills, developing them, building them is really important. And I imagine a lot of your speakers during this conference have probably have shared that that ability, that they've been able to present. They've been able to share what they feel, what they know, in some kind of an effective, passionate way. But other skills in our industry right now include revenue generation. There is a need for revenue generation. Of course, our industry has been stuck because of the pandemic. And so we have a number of things that people need to master, need to, well, kind of recalibrate. So there is going to be a need for people to get familiar with and understand, appreciate, and ultimately apply technology. There are a whole lot of technological advances and innovations that people are going to have to really put into place and do well with. I mentioned revenue generation. That's always been a need, but the fact that so many venues have been closed, the industry has been shut down. So many events have been either canceled, postponed, in some way hindered. There is going to be even a greater need to find creative new ways to generate revenue and still apply some of the standard ways that everybody is familiar with. You know, I'm looking at our industry, the whole industry, and believing that we're going to have to reimagine ourselves. The whole industry, the whole business model, everything that we have done just needs to be reconsidered. Now, we may make some decisions and say, okay, yep, that still works. We like that. We'll keep going with it. But there are going to be some other things that we need to do a little better or a little different because, life has changed. When I don't know everybody's ages who is in the audience here, but when September 11th, 2001 happened in the United States, when airplanes crashed into buildings, a very tragic day, how we operated our venues changed. Security changed. You could walk through an airport on September 10th, 2001, and you weren't going through metal detectors. You weren't getting your bags checked. You were just going to your gate. That all changed right after September 11th, 2001. So this is going to be another one of those situations. This pandemic is going to be transformative in terms of what we do and how we do it. So one example, which I imagine a lot of people think about and perhaps have mentioned, is cleanliness and sanitation of venues, of attending an event. So I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, and we certainly have been agreeing about this for months. Cleaning people at venues, usually we're working, discreetly, not seen very much. The whole cleaning process was not a very visible, promoted thing. That's going to change. You're going to see the housekeeping staff at venues very visible, I believe. They're going to be in uniforms. People are going to want to know that this venue is clean. There is going to be a far greater concentration on sanitizing venues overnight. So those are the types of things that there are many, many changes that are going to happen. But these are the types of things that people will need to appreciate. So whether we're talking about venue generation, whether we're talking about how we manage our venues and the individual skill sets and knowledge that is going to be required. There are, so to your point, yes, there are soft skills that people should master, but they're going to have to be hard skills, real practical elements, components of our industry that people are going to have to just reimagine, rethink, and re-employ.
Indeed, and I will take your pass on this. And given the new COVID-19 new reality that we're all experiencing, uh, we have a question regarding facilities and also how digital technologies will affect or could play a role for facilities. We also had a speech before from Zach Klima and Waittime discussing technology.
Well, I think we could be talking about this for hours, but just to keep this rather condensed, I mentioned cleaning and sanitizing. So just as a for instance, the staff is going to have to do a better job. The management of cleaning and sanitizing is going to have to be better. In fact, up until the pandemic, I don't remember hearing the word sanitizing used very much. Now it's used a lot, and necessarily so. We will, things like UVC lighting and those types of devices that are going to be used in venues to help with that sanitization process. Everybody has to look at things like air circulation and reimagine and perhaps redesign their HVAC system, and also consider how air circulates, the filtration system. All of those things need to be thought through. Attending an event is going to become a lot of this. Let me back up for a second. Some of this technology was already being designed, being tested, being experimented with, but now we're going to see it in full force. Contactless and touchless devices. We're going to be entering venues in a contactless, touchless way. We're going to move around, how we move around the venue. People are going to be monitored. We're going to, people are going to know how they behave. There will be monitoring of this. So this will be partly for safety, but also these also present some marketing opportunities too, frankly. You'll have all kinds of new practices and protocols. The entire introduction or enhancement, I should say, I guess, of the digital experience and the fan as part of the fan experience. There will be second screens. There will be how digital gets integrated more into the entire fan experience. That is going to be added. It already has been. During NBA and other sports events last year, we had the digital virtual fan boards. Mm-hmm. That was a wonderful innovation. There were broadcast techniques that were tried. Some of those are going to stay. As you add technology, and what brings this to mind is the whole idea of contactless and touchless. Whether it's entering the building, paying for food, all of these different devices and innovations is going to happen. The one standard that I believe people who run venues, people who run events are going to need to keep in mind, even in contactless, touchless situations, we still have to touch people. We have to reach people. We have to provide good guest service. We have to provide the best possible fan experience. So just because there is going to be this technology that is going to be contactless and touchless and all these other things, this is still, venues and events are still a place where people want to gather, where people want to celebrate, want to be together. And so it's still about people. And we can't ever lose sight of that.
And Thank you very much. This takes us to our next question regarding how the NBA screens, the technologies can be sources also of revenues. You have discussed some current trends like the contactless, touchless technologies. Are there any other trends you likewise identify? And how have the circumstances actually changed overall in large facilities? What about sustainable?
In where?
In
Um,
large facilities? And also, what about the trend for sustainable facilities?
oh, okay. That's
A
what would you
large
like me to
question.
take first?
uh, I don't know, maybe about the revenues, which
Okay.
is a hurting issue in the sports business worldwide.
Well, some of the technological advances, some of the disruptive things that have occurred because of the pandemic also provide opportunities for both innovation and, frankly, revenue. I think a lot of these new possibilities, these innovations, could be sponsored. They could be a good. I have been very fortunate in working with great salespeople where I have worked or where I have projects that I've consulted on. Great salespeople are truly important because they can take an idea, a concept, and actually, make it affordable. You can make something happen if you can pay for it. I know that sounds very simplistic, but that's really what it sometimes comes down to. So here in the United States, there is this sports gambling has become a thing. It is now legal. It's going state by state. And I imagine there will be some point in the not too distant future where every one of the 50 states plus the District of Columbia will have some kind of sports gambling operation. It will generate revenue. You need technology for that. But some of these other sponsored elements, we just talked about a few of them. Anything that is going to enhance the fan experience will generate exposure, will create a presence, add to the fan experience. All of those, or virtually all of those, will become sponsorable opportunities. This started with sponsorship activations, which is a very important component of sponsorships, as I'm sure a lot of this audience knows. But if you just think about this and take it to its next logical step, activations are experiential, aren't they? They provide, a way for the sponsor to touch in a memorable way the fan, and the fan gets to experience something uniquely that the sponsor has provided. What we're going to be looking at in this next, as we reopen, as we reimagine, as we reignite our industry, is the next phase of activation, in my view. So those things, I think, are going to be particularly visible, impactful, and important. Now, you mentioned sustainability. More and more venues have necessarily turned toward being concerned about and committed to being green, to a sustainable operation. And this has so many important values to it. I don't know where exactly you'd like to go with that, but I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit too, if you'd like.
To be honest, and given the circumstances, is sustainability indeed a current and up-to-date topic? Is it still?
Oh, yes. That's not going away. In fact, it's going to grow. People talk about, and I apologize for people who've already might have heard this, but people talk about for sustainability what is called the triple bottom line of planet, people, and profits. So you're thinking about this in terms of an environmental sense, a social sense, and an economic sense. I talk about this with my students in my venue management class. They're all interconnected. From the design of new venues and renovating venues to installing best practices. These are all really, really important. More and more venues are looking to get the designation here in the United States and elsewhere of LEED certification, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So whether you're getting a platinum, a gold, a silver, whatever the designation is, this is something that demonstrates your commitment to sustainability. And so people, venues, venue management managers have done, really creative things. There are venues that grow vegetables on their roofs. There are people that are using solar power with diverting waste and using water in a creative ways. They are recycling. There are so many different ways to create a sustainable philosophy that these are really important, and they're good for the industry, they're good for the individual venues and their organizations, they're good for the communities. So getting the staff to buy in, getting to have the community engaged, it improves air quality, it improves water quality, it improves all of this. And so again, all these topics we could be talking about for hours, but just in summary, that sustainability is something that is, not only is it not going away, there is a greater and greater realization that this is something to be committed to, and something that we, as in the sports industry, we in venue management and event operations, need to be fully committed to, because it's part of the legacy of putting on events and running our venues.
And indeed, it shall remain a priority despite the difficult times. Maybe not as the top one, at least in the next couple of years.
It's not hard to do this. Once you have it as a practice, it's like turning on the lights, or almost like turning on the lights. It's just something that you do, but people have to be committed to it. So whether, if you're conserving energy, if you're managing and diverting waste in a better way, all of these things, once it's in everybody's mind that this is a commitment, this needs to be done, it isn't that hard.
Indeed. Professor Goldwater, I wish we could have more time to continue this wonderful presentation, but also all the knowledge that you managed to discuss and present in such a condensed, indeed way. I would like to thank you very much. It was a true honor to have this conversation with you and to have this presentation.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate the opportunity. I have not been to Greece. I have a lot of things to do when I get there. There are a lot of venues to see, events to see. I want to be more than a tourist. I want to be someone who really gets to celebrate our industry a little bit. So I certainly hope to be able to do that in the very near future, as soon as the pandemic will allow.
Let's hope that the pandemic will indeed allow this soon enough, and we'll be here waiting for you and navigating you. Thank you again very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All the best to everybody, and stay well.